On Wednesday, China's Ministry of Commerce announced an extension of its anti-dumping investigation into brandy imported from the European Union by an additional 3 months. This move requires importers to pay nearly 40% in upfront security deposits for EU brandy, significantly increasing import costs. France's Ministry of Trade criticized the measures, calling them incomprehensible and accusing China of violating free trade principles. Preliminary results released in October indicated that EU brandy dumping could threaten China's domestic industry, leading to temporary measures targeting EU brandy imports, including prominent French brands like Hennessy and Remy Martin. The investigation is largely seen as a response to France's support for EU tariffs on Chinese-made electric vehicles. French President Emmanuel Macron has previously labeled the probe as pure retaliation. The dispute also stems from a broader trade issue. The European Commission's investigation into Chinese electric vehicle (EV) imports has resulted in significant tariffs aimed at addressing perceived unfair trade practices and protecting the EU's domestic automotive industry. These efforts are part of a larger strategy to foster a competitive and sustainable transition to electric mobility within the EU. The European Union has expressed concern over China's growing dominance in the global EV market. In 2023, Chinese automakers sold approximately 13.6 million electric vehicles, making China the largest producer and consumer of EVs worldwide. Companies like BYD, NIO, and XPeng have become industry giants, with BYD surpassing Tesla as the leading global EV seller. This dominance is largely due to China's ability to leverage economies of scale, supported by a robust domestic market that encourages mass production and cost efficiency. As a result, Chinese EVs are typically produced at costs up to 20% lower than their European or American counterparts, allowing manufacturers to offer a broad range of vehicles from budget-friendly models to premium options. In addition, China is a global leader in lithium-ion battery production and innovation, supplying approximately 75% of the world's batteries. Companies such as CATL, Contemporary Amperex Technology Company Limited, CATL, and BYD are at the forefront of battery technology, developing advanced solutions like solid-state batteries and fast-charging technologies. China's control over key raw materials like lithium, cobalt, and nickel, as well as its investments in refining capabilities, further strengthens its position in the global EV supply chain. China's technological advancements and cost advantages have created significant competitive challenges for European automakers, such as Volkswagen, Renault, and Stellantis, pushing them to accelerate their EV transitions while managing rising costs. Moreover, Europe's reliance on Chinese-made batteries highlights the need for increased investment in local production capabilities. To address these challenges, Europe is focusing on initiatives like the European Battery Alliance and local battery production facilities by companies such as Northvolt. In response to complaints from European automakers and trade associations, the European Commission launched an investigation into Chinese EV imports. The primary concern was that Chinese manufacturers were benefiting from substantial state subsidies, allowing them to sell EVs at artificially low prices. These subsidies included direct grants, tax rebates, discounted land for manufacturing facilities, and access to low-interest loans. As a result, Chinese EVs were priced 20 to 30% lower than European models, threatening the EU's domestic automotive sector during its costly transition to electric vehicle production. In retaliation, the European Commission imposed tariffs on Chinese EV imports, with rates varying by manufacturer. For instance, BYD Auto faces a tariff of 17.4%. The European Union's new tariffs have sparked significant tension between the EU and China, affecting industries on both sides. Chinese electric vehicles, EVs, for instance, now face an 18.8% tariff, with SAIC Motor initially being hit with a 38.1% tariff, later revised to 37.6%. These tariffs are in addition to the existing 10% import duty on all foreign vehicles entering the EU. Set to last for 5 years, these measures are designed to address the competitive disadvantages created by subsidized imports and protect the European automotive market from further disruption. In response to these tariffs, Chinese manufacturers are exploring options to circumvent them. One notable example is BYD, which has announced plans to build a manufacturing base in Hungary, thereby establishing a production presence within the EU and bypassing the tariffs. China has strongly criticized these tariffs, calling them protectionist. Officials have suggested they may pursue legal action through the World Trade Organization, WTO, arguing that the EU's actions violate international trade laws. Implications of EU tariffs. The new tariffs have strained trade relations between the EU and China. The Chinese government has condemned the tariffs as unjust, retaliating with measures targeting EU exports. such as imposing anti-dumping duties on European brandy imports. These retaliatory actions have broader implications, potentially shifting consumer preferences in Europe. The higher prices of Chinese EVs could push European consumers toward domestically manufactured vehicles or imports from other regions not subject to the tariffs. Moreover, the EU's tariff measures have set a global precedent for addressing concerns over subsidies and trade imbalances in the rapidly growing EV market. Beyond the EU and China, these tariffs have a ripple effect on international trade dynamics. China's retaliation. In a tit-for-tat response, China imposed provisional anti-dumping duties on EU brandy imports, further escalating the trade dispute. These duties specifically target the French brandy sector, with France being the primary exporter of brandy to China. In 2023, French brandy exports to China were valued at approximately $1.7 billion, underscoring the importance of the Chinese market for French producers. Major French cognac houses such as Hennessy, Remy Martin, and Martell now face increased costs due to these tariffs, which could potentially erode their profit margins and reduce their competitiveness in the Chinese market. The higher costs might prompt Chinese consumers to explore alternatives, including domestic brandy or spirits from other countries not subject to the tariffs, thus threatening the established market position of French brands. After the announcement of these tariffs, the stocks of companies like LVMH, owner of Hennessy, and Pernod Ricard experienced declines, reflecting investor concerns about the negative impact on sales and revenues. WTO challenge and EU's response. In response to China's retaliatory actions, the European Commission formally requested consultations at the WTO in November 2024, challenging the legality of China's anti-dumping measures. The EU argues that these duties are inconsistent with WTO rules, citing insufficient evidence of harm to China's domestic industry and the lack of a causal link to EU imports. This request triggers the WTO's dispute settlement process, giving China 10 days to respond. If consultations do not lead to a satisfactory resolution, the EU may request the establishment of a WTO panel to adjudicate the dispute. Historical context of EU-China relations. The diplomatic relationship between China and the EU dates back to 1975, when formal ties were first established. This marked a pivotal moment in global diplomacy, laying the foundation for a multifaceted partnership. Over the decades, this relationship has evolved, encompassing trade, investment, and cultural exchanges. During the 1980s, China's reforms under Deng Xiaoping led to a deepening of economic ties with the European Economic Community, EEC, the EU's predecessor. Trade agreements and the opening of markets during this period helped turn the EEC into one of China's most significant trading partners. As the partnership expanded, it reflected both sides' growing recognition of the importance of economic and political collaboration in an increasingly interconnected world. As the European Union, EU, evolved from the European Economic Community, EEC, in 1993, its relationship with China continued to expand, incorporating new areas of cooperation such as environmental protection, scientific research, and human rights discussions. High-level summits and strategic partnerships became routine, emphasizing the importance of this relationship in tackling global issues like climate change, sustainable development, and international security. The economic dimension has been a cornerstone of China-EU relations, particularly after China joined the World Trade Organization, WTO, in 2001. This opened the door to significant growth in bilateral trade, with China becoming the EU's second-largest trading partner and the EU its largest. This period also saw an increase in European investment in China and greater integration of Chinese products into European markets. In 2003, China and the EU elevated their ties to a comprehensive strategic partnership, reflecting their shared global influence and commitment to collaborating across various sectors. This milestone aimed to strengthen political dialogue, boost trade and investment, and promote cultural exchanges to foster mutual understanding. In 2013, the adoption of the EU-China 2020 Strategic Agenda for Cooperation further reinforced their partnership, identifying key areas for joint efforts such as peace and security, economic prosperity, sustainable development, and people-to-people exchanges. The agenda also outlined plans for addressing global challenges like climate change, innovation, and governance, while deepening connections between the citizens of both regions. By 2023, the economic relationship between China and the EU had reached new heights. China became the EU's largest source of imports and its third-largest market for exports. Annual trade in goods between the two surpassed $800 billion, highlighting their robust economic ties. The EU's primary exports to China included machinery, vehicles, and chemicals, showcasing Europe's industrial and technological prowess, while China exported electronics, textiles, and machinery, emphasizing its role as a global manufacturing hub. European investment in China continued to grow, with EU foreign direct investment, FDI stocks in China reaching 177 billion by early 2024. However, in 2023, FDI flows to China fell by 29% compared to 2022, totaling $6.4 billion. The automotive sector, basic materials, and machinery attracted the most investment. Meanwhile, Chinese investment in the EU reached 143 billion by early 2024, with $4.7 billion flowing in 2023, a 10% decrease from 2022. Key sectors for Chinese FDI in the EU included automotive, healthcare, pharmaceuticals, biotechnology, and information technology. Notably, from 2022 onward, most of China's FDI in the EU has been in the form of greenfield investments. Despite strong economic ties, challenges and tensions have emerged. The EU has raised concerns over trade deficits, market access issues, and intellectual property rights, prompting trade defense measures such as anti-dumping duties on certain Chinese goods. Recently, the EU has labeled China as a systemic rival, reflecting concerns about China's global ambitions and their impact on European interests. Looking ahead to 2025, the EU aims to reduce its dependence on Chinese supply chains while maintaining critical trade relations. Strategies for diversifying supply chains, boosting domestic manufacturing, and fostering sustainable innovation, such as the European Battery Alliance, are key to this effort. However, trade tensions remain, particularly over the EU's tariffs on Chinese electric vehicles, which are seen by China as discriminatory. The return of Donald Trump to the U.S. presidency complicates matters further, as his protectionist policies could pressure the EU to align with the U.S. against China. The EU seeks to balance its relations with both superpowers, while safeguarding its strategic autonomy and economic interests. In response, China is reinforcing its economic and technological foundations, accelerating innovation in sectors like semiconductors, renewable energy, and artificial intelligence. The Made in China 2025 initiative continues to focus on reducing reliance on foreign technology, particularly in the electric vehicle and energy storage markets. China's dual circulation strategy is promoting domestic consumption and expanding export markets to ensure resilience against potential trade restrictions. China is also enhancing its global influence through BRICS, which recently expanded to include countries like Saudi Arabia and the UAE, representing 40% of the global population and 25% of global GDP. By encouraging trade within BRICS in local currencies, China aims to reduce its reliance on the US dollar. Through initiatives like the Belt and Road, China is strengthening economic ties with emerging economies, positioning itself as a key financier and technology provider. Despite the challenges posed by trade tensions and protectionist policies, China's diversified trade relationships, strong domestic market, and leadership in emerging technologies place it in a position of strength. By investing in innovation and securing access to critical resources, particularly through BRICS, China is well equipped to navigate the complexities of a shifting geopolitical landscape. That's all for this video. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this content or found it inspiring, please support us by liking and subscribing to stay connected with our community. Your support is invaluable. You can also watch another video from our channel, which is now on the screen.